Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me welcome Honorable Betty Kamya, the Minister for Lands, Housing and Urban Development, to join us on the platform. Please, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. I didn't hear the applause. One more, please. Thank you so much. I can see she's very strong on the SOPs. So, but Honorable, I'm learning a few things from you, and I think I've taken some few notes. I should be carrying some of those everywhere I go. So I hope, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for our discussion tonight. Remember, our major theme is on sustainable housing, sustainable cities. Now, I will start straight away from the far corner by engaging all the way from Uganda Investment Authority. If you can help us define sustainable housing and cities from Uganda Investment Authority's perspective in 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you for associating with Uganda Investment Authority in this conference. I would send greetings from the Director General, Mr. Lawrence BNC, and his main message is that your investment is our business. We welcome all investors in the real estate and construction sector. When we talk about sustainable cities from our perspective, we want cities that do have all tenets of comfortability, cities where investors are able to put in their money profitably and recoup. And when we talk about sustainable housing, we want to change perspective from the main real estate housing that is looking at residential housing and commercial plazas to refocus all investors in this sector to industrial housing. As Uganda Investment Authority, we do promote industrial parks and industrialization in this country, and we are looking at developing 22 industrial parks across the country, not only in Kampala, but also in the various up-country towns like Soroti and Kasese. Now, that's where we want real estate, housing, and construction companies and investors to refocus. We want a city that is well planned with all tenements of affordable and working cities. You must have affordable housing, you must have efficient public transportation, and we are promoting bankable projects in all these sectors. People need to live, they need to work, they need to play. And at Uganda Investment Authority, we have bankable projects in each of these sectors, not only in the housing sector, but also in all the other sectors that I have mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you so much. To those of you that just joined us live on NTV, welcome aboard the train that is taking us on our journey to sustainable housing and sustainable cities in this beautiful country, Uganda. 10 years ago, I developed a dream that was crazy and looked unachievable. I said Uganda can become a first world country. And I think in many ways the housing sector and of course infrastructure development has a role to play. If you're just joining us and watching us live right now, our hashtag is changing perspective. Please share with us your views live on what you think can be done to actually create sustainable housing and sustainable cities for Uganda. Now, Judy, of course, by no means your experience could not easily be put on a weighing machine in as far as the housing sector is concerned, not just in Uganda alone, but by the strength that Knight Frank carries globally. And we are very keen on hearing what your take would be on what it would take for Uganda, or what is involved in this statement of sustainable housing and sustainable cities. What should Ugandans watching right now be trying to pick from our conversation?
Thank you very much, Edwin. Happy birthday to Property Show. Thank you. Actually, 20 years ago today, exactly, Knight Frank was started in Uganda. Oh. So I'm celebrating my 20 years here as well. But the celebration we'll do our 21st instead of our 20th. Thank you very much for that question as well. I think it's a very good question. When I think sustainable cities, when I think sustainable development, really what springs to mind is how we are able to provide or develop or bring on products onto the market and meet the demands and the needs of the generation today without compromising on what the next generations, what our children and our children's children are going to be able to do for themselves. So in other words, when we're building the houses that we're building, we're not going to mine all the sand, we're not going to cut down all the trees, we're not going to deplete all the resources that we have during this time without being mindful about what's going to happen generations from now. And that's really everything to do with people, the environment, the ecology, society, community, whichever way you look at it, is if we can try and create and build cities and develop properties and bring online products that are also sympathetic and cognizant of the fact that the world is going to go on long after us, and we need to take cognizance of that. I could go on, but I'm sure I'll give everyone else a chance to speak as well.
Thank you so much. I'll just request the panelists every time we finish speaking, we can just mute the microphone. I am enjoying this panel so far because of one thing. They are precise, brief, and they're carrying a lot of content for us. And if you're watching us live, I'm sure you're enjoying that. Tonight really is very important for every Ugandan watching right now. If you're in Jinja, that is now becoming a city, Gulu, Fort Portal, this is a conversation we all need to be engaging in. Now, for many years, again, Housing Finance Bank has been a significant player alongside a number of other banks, but playing a very strong leading role in as far as mortgages are concerned. And of course, mortgages are one of those areas that enable us partly discuss sustainable housing, because then even someone who cannot just carry bags of money and purchase a house can be able to access some financing. But what is your take on sustainable housing, sustainable cities? Hope.
Thank you very much, Edwin. Good afternoon to you all. Before I answer the question, Edwin, I would like to just mention that the global housing crisis in developed and developing countries is increasing. And when you look at the population is growing, but the Earth land surface is not expanding. When you look at the global population, about 7.9 billion people, you come here in Uganda, over 40 million people. Now, around the world, the land surface is approximately 57 square miles. And here in Uganda, it's about maybe 93,000 square miles. But remember, we have deserts, we have mountains, some of the areas that are uninhabitable. And so when you put that into consideration, the Earth's land surface is small, but the population is growing. When you look at Uganda, the rate of urbanization is quite high. It's one of the highest in the world, about 5.2%. People are moving from villages to the cities. And all these people need accommodation. We have the most youthful population in Uganda. We have so many youth. There will be, having marriages, getting more children and children. So the population is growing while the earth or the land surface is not expanding. So to me, sustainability is looking at what is ahead of us. We meet the needs of now without compromising the needs of the future generations. So when we talk about sustainability, we are looking at building houses that are going to serve us now, but in the future as well. So they are energy efficient. We are looking at water conservation. We are looking at comfortable homes. We are looking at the environment. Generally, we are not selfish. We want to, offer housing now and not thinking about the future. So there must be a balance. I'm looking at sustainability as a balance between providing the solutions now, but also thinking about the earth, thinking about the environment for the greater population that is growing. I must state that actually sustainable cities and communities is one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals among the 17 goals. Actually, I think it's number 11. So sustainability is key, as we think about Uganda, as we think about housing, as we think about developments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Honorable Betty, of course, the private sector is said to play a huge role in every economy, and Uganda can't be left behind at that. However, the government usually needs to play a very strong role. And we, I think, are very interested in hearing your take on what you think, from government's perspective, ought to be the definition of sustainable housing and sustainable cities for Uganda as a country. Honorable Betty.
I have to remove this to be able to speak on the microphone. And first of all, I want to thank you very much for inviting me to be here as chief guest. I'm really honored. And in my capacity as minister in charge of the housing sector, please permit me to welcome our guests, especially those who are from outside Uganda, the founder of Aesthetic, and the guests from all over the world, as Edwin told us. And of course, and the investors from who are not Ugandans but are investing here, they're a very important factor in the housing sector. And may I also say happy birthday to Knight Frank, 21st, and Property Show.
Thank you.
I will make sure that the 19th of November is a date that I should do something important so that I celebrate.
Please, a round of applause for that.
And Edwin, you just made life very easy for me to ask the two ladies and gentlemen before me to discuss this subject. I couldn't do it better, to tell you the truth. And I want to thank them for their eloquence and clarity of the matter of sustainability. And I think they've captured it very well. I wouldn't even want to repeat it. I wouldn't even have anything to add. What I can talk about is the role of government. And like any other government, the role of government is to provide a conducive policy for the sector, indeed for everything, in terms of legislation, and also to provide a regulatory framework.
Just a minute, Honorable. You might want to lean in a little bit on the microphone so that we can hear you properly.
Sorry, is this better? Is this better for everybody?
Thank you.
Okay. I was just saying that I really have nothing useful to add to the wonderful explanation made by the ladies, but I only explain the role of government in the sector being to provide a housing policy. And in Uganda, we have what we call the Uganda National Housing Policy, whose selling line is adequate housing for all. And this was enacted in May 2016. And the role of government in achieving the goals and the objectives and the aspirations of Ugandans and the world at large, it being no longer a global village. I mean, it being a global village now, what happens in Uganda affects other people as well. So for us to have, to achieve the global goals in sustainable housing, the role of government would be to provide a conducive policy, legislation, and regulatory framework, and also to monitor the implementation of such framework. And for government of Uganda, our policy, I was just chatting with my neighbor whose name, I'm sorry, I can't remember. I do remember it, but maybe I can't say it very well, yes. And I said, the government of Uganda decided to have a private sector-led economy. And so the housing sector is really, like all the other sectors in the economy, are private sector-led. And I'm very happy to say that the housing sector is actually one of the fastest growing sectors in this economy, because to do all the things that, that we aspire to do and still focus on the theme of sustainability, as explained by the young ladies on my right and the gentleman, government, you know, by the time when this government took over, when the NRM government took over government 35 years ago, the economy was in total tatters. I think Edwin's wife might want to know that he was not yet born. But the economy was in total tatters, and the government did not have the resources or the capital to take on investing in the housing sector and other important sectors. So the government decided to pursue the policy of a private sector-led economy. And so the role of government remained to provide the policies and a conducive environment. And we have very progressive, like the gentleman from Uganda Investment Authority said, very progressive investment policies which attract investors. And that's why the housing sector is largely dominated for now by investment from abroad, which I think is a very good thing. And working within the parameters of sustainability, of the environment, of the future, like my colleagues have said, I think that we are doing a very good job, which is why the housing sector is the fastest growing sector and also contributing almost 8% to GDP. For a young sector, young in the sense that everything had come to a standstill about 30 years ago, it becomes a very young economy in the sense that everything had come to a standstill. I think that we are doing very well, and I'd like to congratulate you people in the housing sector.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you so much. Come on, a bit of a round of applause.
To our delegates that are in attendance, in fact, house rules, that reminds me, please kindly switch your phone off or put it in silence, and let's try to have a calm, decent environment. Now, there's a piece of paper that is right before you, and if you have any question for any of the panelists, my intention and goal today is to make it one of the shortest but very effective panel discussions. So if you have any question, please, there's a paper next to you. Just write that question, include your name and company, and to the person you're directing that question. Those of you that are watching us live right now, the discussion is on sustainable housing and sustainable cities. I think the most understood language would be Uganda. Nti abatulaba ejinja kodeyo gulu. How do they greet in Gulu? Kopango, Fort Poto, Modiomuta, everyone. My home, Kabale. Is Kabale city? Honorable, did they leave us out or it's a city? Atabachiga, I am going to talk to Honorable Betty Nitwenga city. So, buli atulaba twogera ku nkulaakulana ekwatagana n'ebyamayumba n'ebibuga ebipya ebyakeyongera mu ggwanga n'ekibuga Kampala tuyinza kwetereza tutya si bibuga byokka wabula n'amaka gye tuva. So I hope you're following the conversation. Our hashtag is changing perspective. Mr. Juza, you've been all around the world. You're a powerhouse in as far as architectures are concerned. What would be your take and in your agenda in coming to Uganda, introducing aesthetics group to bring some good quality housing? What is your understanding of sustainable housing and sustainable cities? 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Edwin, and congratulations for your 8 years at NTV. And I would like to congratulate Betty for 20 years in Night Shrine. And today also we are celebrating a very auspicious day, and I'm very proud that we are launching our company on this particular day. And it's very nice to have the Honorable Minister
as a chief guest, and Edwin for the efforts which you have taken to in this journey to bring us to the point where we are at this particular day where we can present our company and our philosophies. I have been in the field of architecture since last 30 years, and the idea, what I understand about sustainability is, we take from the ecology, the environment, and we are supposed to give back for the future generations to cherish. There is mad rush for construction activities. There is huge demand for housing. There is huge population explosion, people moving towards the cities. And if these cities are not well planned, then there is going to be chaos. So our idea of sustainable cities and sustainable housing is we consider the climate culture context, and we plan for future. Whatever we look in for green environment, clean energy, disposable of sewage waste, rainwater harvesting, these all elements add on and make the building, the society at large and the city into a sustainable city. We have been looking around the world. We find Uganda and Kampala as one of the fastest growing cities in the East Africa, and we are very sure that it's a very lucrative market for developers and investors, and also as our contribution to developing sustainable cities in Africa. Africa has been the cradle of civilization, and we hope that this African continent competes with the other first world countries, and we be a part to this history. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I hadn't yet called for the round of applause for the aesthetics group birthday. We will do that later. But nonetheless, thank you for mentioning it. And of course, finally, for the first round of engagements, let's get to hear from, of course, KCCA has to play. In fact, KCCA doesn't simply play. It must play a very important role in all this. Share with us the dreams of KCCA in as far as sustainable housing, sustainable cities are concerned. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Engineer David Limbazi, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director of Kampala Capital City Authority. What is our philosophy regarding sustainable housing? Of course, we're looking at things like environmental preservation. That's why we have to, as the Minister said, the government puts in place enabling policies and regulations and laws which must be complied with. Regarding environmental protection, we must be able to follow the National Environmental Management Act, which defines what parts of the environment should be protected. Then, of course, we're also looking at economic growth. How do we foster economic growth? How do we foster economic growth or
You might want to check whether the microphone is on.
We have what we call a Kampala Physical Development Plan, which defines the development rights of every development in the city. And then, of course, social equity. How do we ensure that all caliber of earning people in Kampala have social equity in terms of right nature of housing? As you know, there's a lot of urban poverty in Kampala. That's what has promoted what we see as many slums in Kampala. How do we curtail the development of slums defining the city? So those are, us as KCCA, we do provide development permissions to developers. We do provide building permissions to build, people want to build their houses, but you find that many times we are challenged by the fact that because of the urban sprawl, the large rural urban migration, we are not able to control all these developments. That is what is being a major challenge to sustainable development.
All right, thank you very much. Probably the very first question, I don't know whether the minister will want to address it or yourself. When we talk about Kampala and the greater Kampala, we talk about KCCA. Yeah. The question would be for the other new cities and the other districts. Yeah. Is it still KCCA or there's, how, I don't know, probably you might want to address it.
No, KCCA only has an environment where we have the 5 divisions of Central, Makindye, Rubaga, and Kawempe, and which? Nakawa.
Nakawa.
Yeah, that's where we end.
So probably
Wakiso is not within our
All right, then to the
jurisdiction.
Honorable Minister, I believe the Ugandans watching right now might be interested in knowing what happens with the other cities and districts.
Like you rightly said, we have enacted 15 more districts in the country. Cities. That is in addition to Kampala capital city, which is the capital city of the country. And one of the mandates of my ministry, it's actually the Ministry of Land, Housing and Urban Development. So it was foreseen long ago that there would be need for regulated and managed urban development, because like everybody knows, people migrate to urban areas for looking for opportunities which are expected to be in the city, and planning for them, for the cities. And unfortunately, we're not ahead of, the population is ahead of the planners because it grows. But we have in place a minister in charge of that sector of urban development. We also have in place legislation. We have the just enacted the National Physical Development Act, Physical Planning Act, and the Act requires the board or the body to plan for the city before development of the city happens. And the role government has, or the local authorities have the responsibility to put up some infrastructure or services like roads, electricity, water, and plan the city, what's going to be what physical land use, if you like. And so, although I've forgotten what your question was.
No, I was just asking about the other cities and
the
districts,
other
what
cities.
happens with the development.
So yes, we are in the, because they've just been enacted, but there is a framework, a legal framework for planning for the city, even before they,
Thank
they
you.
grow.
All right, thank you very much. Now, if you need a piece of paper to write your question, you can put your hand up and they will get you a piece of paper. Although I'll give opportunity for purposes of interaction, at least 2-3 people who will be able to ask questions on the microphone. Because of the SOPs, we cannot have more than that. Before we take the first batch of questions, my next question would be to Judy. New cities being introduced. What could be in our minds? When I say minds, it's to those of us that are seated here and your investors, your Ugandans with a stake in developing, whether the Honorable Minister has mentioned land, he's mentioned housing. It's development of everything to do with the land resource and real estate generally, whether it's commercial real estate, residential real estate, agricultural real estate. So, to Judy, I don't want us to get into the discussion of what we got wrong with Kampala City. But probably where I want you to start from is Kampala City. What few things would you say would make it a better city? And from those few things, how important is it for us to rethink the new cities? In other words, what can be done for the new cities to improve and not make the same mistakes? Please, Judy.
Thank you, Edwin. How long do I have to answer that question?
2 minutes.
Very briefly, and in a nutshell, I would start with the most obvious one, and that is traffic. I think if we could improve our traffic flows, and with all due respect to KCCA and UNRWA, there's a lot of work going on, incidentally. And there's a lot of work in the pipeline that is being worked on to actually improve the road network of the country, and especially of Kampala. So, but we're not going to see the results of that for another few years. But there's definitely a lot of work that's taking place in the pipeline. But if we could just work on that a lot quicker, it will help us on the downtime, the amount of time that we're actually spending on the road in traffic jams. It will also help us on the pollution that we are expending in the air. And this goes back again to government and their enforcement of the quality of cars that we're putting on the road as well. The air quality of this city is very poor. And if at any one point, if you get on to measure the AI, the air quality of Kampala, you'll find that it is terrible and it needs a lot of working done to improve the pollution that is being caused by the traffic. I think traffic is really the first one. The other one is urbanization has led to an issue of unplanned settlements that we need to deal with as well. There's a lot of slum areas in our city that need to be looked at, and a lot of attention needs to be paid to that. The numbers are becoming overwhelming. The rate of urbanization, I think, is 4.7% or 5.7% per annum. That is a huge amount of people that are coming into the city every year to add on to the pressure that's already existing, which is also putting further pressure on other resources like water, power, electricity, our sewage system, which was never built to support the number of people that are now in the city. So that's another area that needs immediate attention. And then, of course, the comparative advantages, income inequality, poverty, that you need to address between the haves and the have-nots, between those who have housing, access to water, access to sewage facilities, toilets even. These are other areas that I think are pressing for this city that we need to look at if we're going to try and achieve sustainability to any level. And these are basic requirements, by the way. I mean, water, settlements, mode of transport, these are all very basic requirements that people should have as a basic need and as a human right, really. And I think they're things that city has come under huge pressure, and need to be addressed immediately.
Thank you very much. Briefly, to Hope, what is Housing Finance Bank doing to contribute towards ensuring that, because when you look at Housing Finance Bank and what the likes of leaders like Peace are doing, we talk about mortgages. But then, of course, when you compare our mortgages to the rest of the world, because the question of financing in as far as real estate is concerned is another whole huge issue. But briefly, what is Housing Finance trying to do to ensure, because Judy has mentioned quite a number of things that almost relate to even the quality of housing that can be accessed by your support. As Housing Finance Bank, is there anything being done beyond the normal at the moment for people to conveniently access housing?
Thank you, Edwin. So Housing Finance Bank is a commercial bank, and commercial banks play an intermediary role, mobilizing savings from those who may not need to use the money immediately, and then giving it to those who want to borrow and invest and, build houses and all sorts of investments. So as Housing Finance, we have been supporting the housing sector for over 50 years now, and we are doing quite a lot on both the demand and the supply side. So on the supply side, we are working with the developers. We have quite a number of developers. We do developer financing. Putting up a project, Edwin, is not a simple matter. It's heavy capital investment. And so for those who do not have savings, it's really imperative that they get the support of commercial banks and other financial institutions to be able to put up these huge projects. So we support the supply side by financing the developers, but we don't just finance, we walk the journey with them. So we also do what we call the off-taker financing, those who want to buy what has been put out. So we do mortgage financing. We provide financing for the individuals who would like to borrow the units that have been constructed by the developers. So you can see that we are playing the role, driving supply, but at the same time, driving the demand. Because if the developer puts up a huge project and there are no people to buy, then definitely the sector will collapse. So, and we don't stop there. We also support the customers. We play the advisory role. We walk the journey with most of the customers. I was telling someone that recently there's a customer who walked to the bank and they needed money to put up a wall fence for a house which is still under construction. The house is incomplete, but the customer would like to put up a wall fence. So then I was challenging the customer, why are you borrowing to put up a wall fence when the house is incomplete? Then you're putting money, you're sinking money in a project where you're not going to earn. So why don't you use some of your savings to first complete the house, or come to the bank to complete the house, so that then you can use it to either rent or use it for something else that can earn you money. So we do the advisory role as well. So we support demand, supply, and advisory. I would like to speak to affordability. So we've been doing mortgages or mortgage financing for a while now. However, we realized that mortgage financing is accessible to a small percentage of the population. Because to get a mortgage, you need, contribution, you need to have a land title, you need to have a formal income, all that. But then we realized that Ugandans have informal income. Some of the Ugandans do not have land titles. So we have actually gone down to design products for some of the customers who do not have formal income and they don't even have land titles. So we've designed some of the products that can be able to assist some of the informal sector customers or people to be able to access housing finance. So you find like a border person is able to put up a house. So if we have the plan, the physical plans done, we have everything set, then a border person can actually walk to Housing Finance Bank and borrow money to finance their housing project. Or someone who has just finished the university and they have a job, they can walk to a developer, they identify a house, and we do 100% financing. So we are putting out different solutions that can be able to support the high income, the middle income, and the low income Ugandans to be able to meet their housing needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, I'm getting ready to take the first round of questions, but before I do that, Mr. Juza, from Aesthetics Group's perspective, recently we had the UK convention, and I was moderating the real estate panel, on which I think among the discussants, Judy was involved. And one of the key questions that came out was the quality. And I believe that you've had great experience in even residential and commercial properties. In Uganda, where you came as a visitor, you'd know that at times we've had buildings collapse because of the quality, the concern on quality. Briefly, what would you say aesthetics comes to add in as far as the quality of a housing stock is concerned, and what would other developers learn? Please.
Thank you, Edwin. This is a very important question. Quality is prime because a person who is investing his life's earning, you would want that apartment or that residence to be passed on to his children. So it should have a life at least of 50, 60 years. And it's the duty of the developer to provide a good quality where you do not have leakages, you do not have to have continuous maintenance, and it is structurally stable. Many developers in the greed of earning huge profits, they compromise on the cost of construction and maybe give a substandard housing. So aesthetic, being architectural firm, prime architectural firm, we have an eye for design and an eye for quality. Having said that, we have entered into construction as developers. So we, with this kind of a background and our wide experience since last 30 years around the globe, the prime aim is to have a structure which is perfect, in line, level, plumb, structurally stable, where people can safely stay in the houses. We pay attention to earthquake designs, we pay attention to wind designs. We spend more on the structural stability and see that the end product is worth the kind of money which the buyer has put in. One of the major aim is to optimize. So we optimize our resources and we see the best goes to the buyers.
Thank you very much. We'll take the first round of questions. Mr. Hamza, what has the Investment Authority done to enable a conducive and preferable, is that preferable? Preferable environment for national housing over the years? What has the Uganda Investment Authority done to enable a conducive and preferable environment for national housing over the years? Please, 2 minutes, Mr. Hamza.
Thank you very much. At Uganda Investment Authority, we did advocate for incentives in the housing sector, VAT refunds on building materials, which were, however, scrapped because then the sector became lucrative. So what we are doing as UIA is to be able to spin the market. The biggest incentive now that you have for any businessman is where the market is. So we are trying to bring in more investments that can be able to bring the market for the housing sector. We are developing industrial parks which attract manufacturing units where large concentration of consumers of housing products are concentrated. And that's where we are now encouraging all developers to develop their units all around these industrial concentrated areas where the incentives, which is the biggest incentive the market is. This is one of the large and profitable industries that we do not even need to promote anymore because we have an overflow of investors. It's only putting together the right set of investors to move into the real estate sector within the industrial areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I need to just inform all of us that we have only 10 more minutes left for our panel discussion. And right now, the focus is just going to be on the questions, not my questions, but the questions from the audience and the questions that I'm receiving on social media. But I will kindly request our panelists, if I ask you a question, just, if it can be in 30 seconds, a minute maximum, that should be good. Knight Frank, Judy, what are the prospects for sustainable warehousing to support the surge in e-commerce in Uganda? Have you heard it? Could I repeat it? What are the prospects, Judy, for sustainable warehousing to support the surge in e-commerce in Uganda?
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. I think we still have a long way to go until we can get our e-commerce running as well and as efficiently as we want to. Obviously, this is very much a function of the level of development of our infrastructure. And to be able to do that efficiently, then we're going to have a better road network, transportation network, better street labeling, better facilities that are able to deliver door-to-door, and really a lot more organization in that sense. But I think there is no harm in planning ahead and going ahead to actually develop the warehouses that will be used as DCs, distribution centers, or for storage, for example, for the e-commerce that's already happening right now. It's already lucrative within Kampala, but I think taking it out of the city is going to require a lot more investment in road transportation and other infrastructural developments that will enable the e-commerce to flourish efficiently.
Thank you very much. That was a question, I think, from Benjamin. Is that Benjamin Emuk from Kampala Scoop and Chimp Reports. Dear Honorable, we have seen your ministry. No, there's one I wanted to start with. Yes, to Honorable Betty Kamya, it is unfortunate that you are not very old in that office. When I read it is very unfortunate, I nearly wanted to faster. All right, it is unfortunate that you are not old in that office, but I would like to know which plans government, rather your ministry, is doing to lower the rent fees for ordinary Ugandans. In other words, to those watching, ategeza omuntu wa wansi, rent, what can be done? And he's saying that, is there a law that protects the tenants from exploitation from landlords? And I'm sure Judy might also want to comment on this. But Honorable Betty, what are you doing in as far as rent for Both, yes, the high, middle, naye n'omuntu wa wansi, what is being done? Microphone. Thank you.
The biggest problem that we have is the cost of money, because the cost of money is quite high here, and you need to bring it down. And then, because most of the buildings and the houses are private sector owned, they are not owned by government, and you don't know where they get their money from, and at what interest rates the commercial banks lend their interest rates. So what government would do, is trying to do, is to bring down the cost of money. And bringing down the cost of money is expanding the economy, is also ensuring what we're doing right now is promoting import substitution and export promotion, so that we balance our trade, and then we can have more money, lower cost of money. That is basically the major. Otherwise, it's private sector led. Yeah. But for purposes, in the next 1 second of answering the question directly, there is a Parliament enacted a tenants landlord bill, which is yet to be assented to by the President, and that one should bring a win-win situation.
Judy, do you think 30 seconds would suffice for you to add something to this particular question?
Yes, Edwin. I think it's pretty clear that Uganda operates a free market economy, and government really doesn't have a role in regulating rents. That is not their responsibility, because it is a free market, and they encourage free markets and markets that are trading between a willing tenant and a willing landlord. So I'm not sure how they would come in to start subsidizing and dictating what rents should be, unless they're going to obviously subsidize them for the end user. But what they could do is to actually get involved in actually developing social housing for that income or that niche market, which is actually quite big and quite large, because these are people who cannot afford to buy a house that is being sold on the market, and cannot even afford to rent, actually. So that is where government could come in, by actually not only enabling the process, but being developers of social housing, which is the cheapest form of housing you can get on the market because it's free.
Thank you so much. We are getting to the very final minutes of our panel discussion. Mr. Juza, a question from Grace Spectrum Real Estate Solicitors. How are you going to integrate affordable and sustainable housing in Uganda? Please, 1 minute.
Integration of sustainable housing and affordable. Affordability is, sustainability has 1/3, 30% of sustainability is affordable housing. Affordable housing basically is to achieve affordable housing, you have to look into the mass development. There has to be, to make it affordable, you have to get the higher density for development, and keeping in mind the affordable, the sustainable parameters in design. I think it is possible, because we have got a lot of areas which have been prime areas which are been occupied by informal housing in Kampala, Uganda. Those areas, if they are freed up and they high density residential development is promoted, then those areas can be taken into communities which would be with sustainable features, and sustainable housing and affordable housing could be a connection.
Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me in the very final minutes to all our panelists right now. If I asked and put you on the spot and asked you a question, that to the Ugandans that are watching right now, that have put faith in the authority you carry from your different capacities in channeling a way forward for sustainable housing and sustainable cities, what would be your last take home right now for everybody watching right now, to the delegates that are in here? I think this time around I will switch and begin from this side. That from KCCA's perspective, engineer David Luimbazi, in 1 minute, what would you say is the way forward based on our theme today? 1 minute, please.
Thank you so much. In order to have sustainable development, I think what I would say, I would urge the public to be able to follow the laid out government policies, government plans, government regulations, and government laws. In so doing, we shall be able to avert the risks of being able to develop without permissions, which leads to dangerous construction, which has led to fatalities in some cases. So complying with the laid out procedures will ensure that we have a sustainable, livable city in Uganda.
Thank you very much. Mr. Juza, now that today is the birthday of Aesthetics Group as a player in the industry, in 1 minute, what would you say we should be looking forward to? Especially, we are expectant that you will be a player practically of what you're saying. In other words, you'll practice what you're preaching. What should we be looking forward to in as far as sustainable housing, contributing to the growth of our sustainable cities?
Quality, quality, and quality. That's what we are going to promise, nothing more than that.
Thank you so much. Wow. I think, guys, another round of applause for the panelists today. It's the best panel that I've had to. They're amazing. They're amazing. Now, Honorable Betty, of course, a lot always is expected of every government. But I think for now, what I'll do, I'll allow you to do the last 1 minute. So allow me skip you and go to Peace. Peace, Housing Finance Bank. You have done a lot in the last couple of years. Many other banks, I've seen some of the other banks represented here as well, have done quite a lot. But what can be done in furthering this theme forward? As we enter 2021, the next 10 years, what's going to be done, what is required?
Thank you. I think, no doubt, there is a lot of opportunity in the housing market in Uganda. You've heard about the industrial parks coming up, the new cities that have been created. The opportunities are there. But I think what we need is to have a paradigm shift in the way we approach the housing market for sustainability. So we must be able to look to new technologies. We must be able to innovate new products and solutions that will meet the customer's needs. And even the customers need to move with the new trends, technology. If we say brick and mortar is not going to work for the next 50 years, is a Ugandan willing to adjust to a refabricated house? So we need to change our mindsets, and the banking sector is really keen to support Ugandans, specifically Housing Finance Bank. You can see that we are on the go, trying to come up with all kinds of solutions to be able to support the housing market. Thank you.
A round of applause for her, please. Judy, you have your moment now. Sustainable housing, sustainable cities. What should be our take home to those that are watching us live and to the delegates present in this room?
I think really for a lot of the developers out there, it's important to know that we cannot possibly make all the money we want to make in one go. And we also need to think about the generations that are coming. If we deplete all the resources that we have now, then they're not going to have anything left for them. That's the first one. The second one is that you can actually achieve the same quality using renewable energy, renewable products, and more environmentally friendly ways of building than you would do if you didn't. So the difference in pricing is minimal, and yet you can achieve the same returns by being more environmentally aware, more environmentally friendly, and actually, just paying a little attention to the issue of sustainability as we develop property.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for Judy, please. And going to, of course, Uganda Investment Authority's perspective, Mr. Hamza, in 1 minute, where is our hope? What should we be looking out for in the next coming years?
Thank you. The first message goes out to the cities, the new cities. Please plan. Physical planning, very important, to be able to attract sustainable investments. All the challenges that we have previously faced in the earlier cities can be turned into investment opportunities. Housing, drainage, sewage are investment opportunities, and we do have bankable projects done for you for all these challenges. To the investors, please don't put your money before having a chat with Uganda Investment Authority. We have designed the one-stop center, which is functional to facilitate all your business needs. We have all agencies, 13 government agencies in one place. We are now coming to the regions. In Mbale, Arua, we shall put regional one-stop centers to be able to facilitate all your needs in the housing sector. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Honorable Betty, in 1 minute, the Ugandans are listening, the delegates are listening. What should be our way forward and our take home this afternoon?
Yes, of course, there are many aspects that government would have to look at, but for now, I'll just talk about the land tenure system, which Judy talked about. Judy said there are many people are not able to access mortgages because they don't own land, but government is stabilizing the land sector and also the land tenure system by strengthening the security of ownership of land in the central region and also in other parts of Uganda, where the small holders of land can now hold titles as well. So when they have titles, they can now benefit from the mortgage system, and that will help out for more people to be able to get mortgage, to access mortgage facilities for their land. You've seen the president in Karamoja, in the other places of the country, actually helping to give out people land titles from formerly large chunks of land which were held by one person. They can now be parceled out and people get land titles for themselves. So security of land tenure is one of the things that government is working up right now.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for Honorable Betty Kamya. I know that we shall be having a few remarks from Honorable Betty at as soon as we have the birthday baby unveiled in a few minutes. But ladies and gentlemen, allow me, and I repeat, I've moderated a couple of events before, and I think this by far would be one of the best panels that I've had to moderate, straight to the point with great content. Come on, a round of applause for them. And now, one by one, I'll just allow them to take their seats again. Of course, thank you so much, Mr. Engineer David Ulimbazi, the KCCA Deputy Executive Director. Thank you so much. You may resume your seat. Mr. Juza, the founder and chairman of Aesthetic Group. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause, a round of applause, a round of applause. Thank you very much. To Honorable Betty Kamya, thank you very much for gracing the event today. Please, a round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I don't even have gentlemen who help ladies downstairs here. Mrs. Peace Kabunga, Executive Director, Housing Finance Bank, thank you very much. Thank you so much. We've had, and of course, Mrs. Judy Chandarugasira, Knight Frank, a brand we all know globally. Come on, a better round of applause. And of course, finally, the Uganda Investment Authority, Mr. Hamza. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamza Galiwango, Director of Industrial Planning. Thank you very much. To those of you that are watching live, we're still on live with you because shortly, I know there will be an unveiling, but I need to let every Ugandan know my simple message is the simple things, just like Kigali is, cleanliness, tosula kaveda, tosula mede, drive carefully, drive safely. But during this time, all I can say, let's try to stay safe. Let us always wear our masks. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, my job is done. I think I deserve a round of applause as I hand over the microphone to the MC.
All right, thank you very much. Like he says, another round of applause to Edwin Musime and the panel. Wonderful job that they have done. And without further ado, I'm going to ask my video crew if you can just get ready with that video. Mic check. In a short while, we're going to be hearing from the CEO of Aesthetics. And just before he comes, I'm going to ask the camera crew. There's a special video that would like to play. So if you can just go ahead and play. It's just a 1-minute video, so all eyes on the screen.
If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It's all about the right perspective, your point of view. By changing the way we are building and redefining the way we build, we believe that we can create a better future for this generation and all those to come. We design and develop buildings with a focus on sustainable excellence today while creating a better tomorrow. In order to inspire change, we must lead by example, design and develop projects that lead the way into a sustainable future for the many, not just the few. We engineer not just buildings, but a place to dream, work, live, love, and above all, call a home. Smart, sustainable, connected, and part of a bigger whole. With the heart and soul of an architect, our buildings are here to make a lasting impact, building a better world. Building by building. We are Aesthetic Group, changing perspective.
Wow. Very, very beautiful. In a short while, a baby is about to be born, and right now we are in labor pains. So we're going to be delivering that baby in a short while. It seems today is going to be an anniversary for many, for Aesthetic, for the property show. You said 8 years today. Happy birthday to them. Another round of applause one more time. Knight Frank, 20 years. And in case you did not know, today is International Men's Day. So if there's a man near you, please congratulate. Just congratulate any man next to you. But it gives me great privilege right now to ask us to put our hands together for the CEO of Aesthetic Group. And I'd like us to put our hands together for Mr. Huzaifa to just come and give us his remarks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hope you all have enjoyed the panel discussion. And the most important thing for me is that to speak after such distinguished guests and speakers, I'm honored. And I'll do my little bit to do justice to the discussion which was already discussed before me. And again, for us today, it's the most essential thing to talk about sustainability and climate change, because today in the world, one of the major issues the world is facing. You see, the COVID is something which is tangible and people can see it, whereas climate change is a more subtle threat, but it is absolutely real. So let's get to aesthetic designs. A little history about aesthetic, and like we are celebrating a lot of anniversaries today, aesthetic is celebrating its 30 years since the time it was founded. So this year, 2020, we are celebrating 30 years of aesthetic designs. This company was founded by my father, and he got into architecture with that belief that the architecture which we design will live beyond our lifetime. And the built environment is one of the major aspects which affect all of us. So I'm quite sure when you all came to this conference and the people watching this live at their home, they are in a built environment which has been designed by an architect. So the emphasis or the potential or the power an architect has on lives is unimaginable. So with that thought, my dad got into architecture. He did his master's from University of Nottingham, from University of Oklahoma, OU, and specialized in urban design, city planning. I did my master's from University of Nottingham, and I specialize in sustainable tall buildings. Now, before we get to sustainability, I would like to introduce our team. So you can see my dad, that's me, that's Mr. Mustafa, he's a CFO, Mr. Huzaifa, he's a COO, and some of our many team members, and each one has many people under them. I couldn't fit all of them, but you get the idea. Some of them, we wanted most of them to be here, but unfortunately they couldn't, but some of them, like Tuan is here, representing his company from Netherlands. We have architects from the UK, we have team in Uganda, and especially in India as well. Moving on to sustainability, we had a very deep conversation today, so I'm going to be very, very brief about it. On an average, we spend 18 hours at home or in a built space. Especially in COVID, we spent more than 24 hours in a built environment. So the effect a building has on one is profound. And as architects, it's our job, it's our duty to make these spaces the best it can be. The effect this space has on you psychologically is it's huge, because even though you don't notice it, subconsciously you're feeling something, your moods change, the effect, the way you feel changes. So for us, the word sustainable has been a bit, it's a bit controversial actually, because everything and everybody labels themselves as sustainable. So this is there's a quote by an architect, a very famous quote. The situation in the year 2012, and I quote again, situation in the year 2020 is that everything and anything is labeled as sustainable. And it's complete, and these adjectives have lost their meaning. And people still don't understand what sustainability is. So as our distinguished panel explained, that sustainability is about the future generations sustaining and they enjoying the benefits we enjoy today. So for us, sustainability is very, very simple. To break it down, it's three things: climate, culture, context, or profit, planet, people. It's in balance, as we just discussed, that it's not only about the economics, it's not only about the environment, it's not only about the people or the social aspect of it. It's a balance, it's a tug and pull, and it's the center which makes it sustainable. So a lot of people say that we just had a discussion about affordability and sustainability, but affordability is part of sustainability. For it to sustain, it has to be affordable. And the most important thing today is the environment, because as we discussed about global warming, buildings account for more than 40% of the CO2 emissions in the world. Now, just to get our heads around this, some of you all have seen these images before, but to the people who have not seen these images, some wild guess from the audience which these images or which cities are these from? Maybe from there, somebody? Any random guess which cities is which? It could be anything. Nobody's judging right or wrong. Okay, San Francisco, okay. Then? Dubai, okay. Abu Dhabi, that's good. And Hong Kong, okay, great. So you see there's one thing common in all these photographs except for the water, and that is glass buildings, right? The way the buildings are made or designed. Now, having said that, we ask this question that, and they all look the same, because these buildings are from very different temperature zones, they have very different climates, but the facade or the building envelope is the same. And as when we go to Chicago or when we go to Dubai, we change the way we dress to suit the climate. And our buildings, which have to do this as well, are uniform. And again, this is one of the pros and cons of globalization. So the idea is, in Dubai, the temperature or the summer temperature reaches above 40 degrees, whereas in Chicago, the temperature in winter reaches minus 20 degrees. But still, you have glass buildings all over. So with glass, you're creating a problem and then solving it. And this is a very interesting article from a newspaper, and which talks about cities are turning into concrete ovens. And this also talks about one of Malabar Hill, that is India's or Mumbai's Kololo, and it's become 4 degrees hotter since '98. The fact that, why is this happening? Why are the cities getting hotter? And one major aspect of that is construction. It's development, it's the concrete jungles. And that is something which we have to talk about today. Because I'll tell you one thing, Uganda is blessed with a lot of things. But one main thing it's blessed with, it's the climate. That is God-given. And in Chicago, in Dubai, everybody tries to get their buildings to 24 degrees. But in Kampala, it's given. It's free for you all. So we have to ensure that the buildings which we design today here respond to the climate of Kampala, because you've got something which nobody else has, or most of them don't have. And when you think about Africa, some people think that, oh, it's going to be very hot. But when you get to Uganda, you see what Uganda is blessed with. So today, moving forward, we are going to talk about this. Again, a lot of people have seen this. And this is a view from Hong Kong. And as they say, this is a $1 million view. You're literally paying $1 million for this. And this is in the island city. The fact that some people say that, Muzaffar, you know what, we are paying $1 million for convenience because you can literally grab the salt of your neighbor if you run out of it. But for the most of it, it's what you get, congested buildings, congested tall buildings. So this is also happening in other places of the world. It's not just Hong Kong. If you see this one, this is a project in Mumbai. Again, one apartment was $1 million, and they sold it for the views. And after the building was completely sold, something like this happened. And now the people who bought this apartment for $1 million for the view, their property depreciated, right? It's an instant depreciation. Now, when something like this happens, it becomes national news. And it came here that flat buyers pay big bucks for scenic views only to find it totally blocked. Now, you'll say that, Muzaffar, again, this is not Uganda, but how many of you all can actually see this happening today in Kampala? This is actually happening now here. It is. If you look at Kololo, if you look at Naguru, if you look at Najera, you look at Nalia, this is exactly what's happening. And the fact is that this is happening in mature markets all over the world. So we getting there so fast is something to think about. And it not only blocked their views, but it also blocked their access to ventilation, and it also blocked their access to light. Because suddenly, 60% of the building did not receive natural light. And most of the building did not receive ventilation. So coming to some of the other sustainable projects all over the world, this is Walkie-Talkie Tower, one of London's most sustainable building. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is because it's very important to call out the word sustainability and to be critical about it. Because as we said, that everything and anybody is calling themselves sustainable. And if you remember 2 years back, Volkswagen, one of the largest car manufacturers, used cheating devices to lower their CO2 emissions. And that caused their die-hard customers, they were like, what is sustainability now? There's nothing called as environment because it's just a marketing gimmick. It's a green wash. So this building was named as London's most sustainable building. And then something like this happened. The Walkie-Talkie wins the worst building of the year. Now what happened here? The architecture of this building did not respond to the site. It converged light in front of it, burnt a car, people started frying eggs in front of it. And this is in London. Again, you have another example from Abu Dhabi, where there were two glass buildings wrapped out with a mechanical facade. The mechanical facade costed $100 million. Now, for that, you've created a glass building and then you have solved the problem by a mechanical facade. So again, this is a good science experiment, but it cannot be called sustainable. So very, very briefly, don't create a problem and then solve it. And that has been our main focus. Now, before we get into this very, very quickly, I know we are running out of time, but I know, again, a lot of people have seen this before, but why do you think the Earth is round? Very, very, I'll just give 30 seconds to this. Anyone who knows it can just put their hands up and say why the Earth is round. Anyone? Okay, so I'm going to get to the answer straight away. It's a very simple problem. It's a math problem. The Earth is round because when you have a circle is the most optimum shape in nature. When you have a circle, the area is 100 square meters. The perimeter required to construct a circle is only 35.45 meters in length, whereas a hexagon is 37, a square is 40, and a rectangle is even longer, 42 meters. This only shows that even having the same area, the perimeter, or the amount of material required to construct it is much more. Now, this is called as form mass optimization, and this is the core of sustainability, because this is where you don't create a problem and solve it. You've made the mass so efficient that anything you do over it does not matter, because your mass itself is efficient. And it doesn't mean that you go around building circle or hexagon houses. It's about the concept. It's about the understanding, and today we have the tools to do those analysis and to find out the optimum shape for a building. So for the benefit of time, I'm going to skip through some of this. So talking about aesthetics, coming back to this, so how do we put all this into our projects? So before we go into our projects, indeed, Aesthetic has finished 10 million square feet of design in the last 30 years. And we've done projects all over the world. So we've done projects in UK, we've done projects in the Middle East, we've done projects in East Africa, we've done projects in the Far East, Singapore, Malaysia, and yes, a whole of India. And I'm just going to highlight very few projects. This is one project which we designed in India, in Ahmedabad. And in this, there were 450 rooms, 900 bathrooms. The idea was to make it efficient. And in Ahmedabad, the temperature reaches again 50 degrees. So we had to make sure that the air conditioning loads is the minimum. This is another project which we completed, which we are designing at the moment. It's under construction, which is 650,000 square feet in Mumbai. And in this, the most important aspect was the facade response to the orientation. So each window was designed based on the orientation. This is another project which we won an award for in Hong Kong. The plot area was only 20 decimals, and this is an 40-story building, 20 stories of commercial and 20 stories of residential. And again, in this, we've taken care of all the issues which we spoke about. This is another project in London. In this, the main idea was to reduce the surface area, because by reducing surface area, we could increase the amount of natural heat, because in London, you want heat during winters. And again, these are some of our projects which we've completed. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but then in this, the most important aspect in this image is the solar radiation, which we carry out for even the smallest to the biggest project, which dictates where the windows should come, where the glazing should come, and where the openings and how much of those openings should we use. So having said all this, so for us, the most important thing was to come up with a vision. I came to Uganda in 2018, and since then we've been focusing on research, trying to understand the place, trying to understand the context, and trying to understand what fits here. So we came up with the Vision Uganda. The Vision Uganda is very, very simple. To make Uganda the best it can be. A lot of people say that, especially coming from India, say that Uganda needs to be like India, or Uganda needs to be like UK, or Uganda needs to be like the US. And the same thing happens in India. When somebody comes from outside to India, they're like, India needs to be like Singapore, or India needs to be like this or that. The fact that Uganda or each country or each place or each plot has its unique advantages and disadvantages. If you consider everything on a global scale, you're missing out on the most important advantage. And again, in Kampala and Uganda, the biggest advantage we have is the climate and the topography. So for us, we are going to highlight, this is part of our extensive this, but today what's happening in Kampala, as the panel discussed, is housing is either very expensive, it goes above $250,000, or it is sub-quality housing. And even after having such expensive housing, that quality is not maintained. Either the apartments are too congested, the ground cover is extensive, or they are not earthquake resistant in design, and most importantly, they are not material efficient. So for us, what we believe is that sustainable housing is the key approach, not only affordable, but Uganda needs sustainable housing. It's very simple. Its housing needs to sustain generations. So again, sustainability is three things: social, economic, and environment. And Uganda has an opportunity to pave an ideal way. It could become the ideal model which other African countries adopt, and eventually the world adopts. Because as we discussed, that it's a blank canvas, and it's up to us what we draw on it now. So for us, we've broken this down into before we get to that, I would like to show this report by KCCA, and I'm happy that we are joined by the KCCA here, that this report talks about the urban heat island effect, and it says that in 80 years, in 2100, the temperature of the city is going to rise by 8 degrees. And what are we going to do about this? Because why is this happening? It's happening because of the development. It is happening because of the extensive construction. Again, construction is going to move on, but the policies which we set today is going to define us tomorrow. Before we conclude, this is a very important graph. I don't know if you can see it, but this is a graph which shows the transport versus population density. And this talks about different cities in the world. On the right, there's Hong Kong and Mumbai, and on the far left, there's Houston. And there's something which Houston is doing very wrong, or Hong Kong and Mumbai is doing very well. And that, as they discussed the panel, is transportation. The cities which you see in the blue and the green and the red dots rely completely on public transport, whereas the cities which are marked in gray rely completely on private transport. So no matter what happens, no matter how many roads do you develop, because Houston roads are 12-laned, but still people sit in traffic for 1.5, 2 hours. So, and what these guys do, you know, when you go to London, you never take your car to the central London. You always use the metro. It's very rare that you actually take your car in central London. And why is that? Because of efficient transportation systems. And for us to become efficient and us to become sustainable cities, transportation is going to be one of the most important aspects. Now, we've been having meetings with, yes, NEMA and KCCA, and we have found, yes, friends there who believe in this, and as we discussed, that we are very passionate about sustainability, and so are NEMA and KCCA. And for that, we spoke about all this. So we said that, you know, preaching is good, but we need to practice before we preach. So all the things which we spoke about has communicated into 3 things. And I feel that now is the time that we could, I'll hand it over to Mr. Edwin, that at the end of all this, talking about all this, natural ventilation, urban ventilation, the heat effects, the views, especially what you see from your house, the most important thing. And with that, we have decided that let's show it how it's supposed to be done. And taking it from there, we would like to unveil our projects, which we are going to design and develop. So it's a design and build, where we are the architects, we are the contractors, and we are the developers ourselves. So this whole process gets complete. And with that, I think I would like Mr. Edwin to invite our distinguished guest to unveil our upcoming projects. Because again, as we said, lead by example. And that is what we are saying, that these problems which we just spoke about, this is how we solve it.
All right, a round of applause for our CEO. I think very well delivered. I'm sure his presentation can be made available for those of you who want to go through the details. Very quickly, I'm going to invite all our panelists just to join us as we officially give birth to this baby and unveil. And as they move forward, very quickly, just to ask you to give a round of applause to our different partners who have made today possible. Of course, Aesthetic, who are the ones who have organized today. The Property Show, who are the hosts. We have DVI Tech, who are responsible for all our sound, stage, lighting. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the unveiling is taking place. I do not know what you sing on a day like this, happy birthday, or... but I'll ask the DJ to find us something befitting. Congratulations. Come on, a bigger round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just invite Edwin just to give a few more remarks as we do this.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, once again, happy birthday to Aesthetics Group, to the live audience out there. Please, do they sing happy birthday? Is that a happy birthday? How do they sing? Congratulations, right? Congratulations, please, one more round of applause to Aesthetics Group. Amazing projects over here. And of course, the hashtag changing perspective. I hope all the cameras are getting that right. It looks amazing. So to everybody who's seated here, by the way, you consider you need to have a property by Aesthetics Group. So after this, I know the MC will invite you to the Aesthetics Group Design Lounge to find out a little more about what they have to offer. But one more round of applause once again, and thank you all the panelists for witnessing this moment. Thank you so much. And right now, we're in the last few minutes of our presence here. Allow us just welcome the Honorable Betty Kamya to just make a few remarks as we congratulate Aesthetics Group being born today. Thank you.
Oh, I have to take this off. Ladies and gentlemen, special recognition goes to the founder of Aesthetic. I want to thank Aesthetics and Property Show for holding this great show, which I enjoyed very, very much. And thank you, Edwin, for asking me to make a few remarks because I don't have a prepared speech. I'm going to speak from the heart. I want to thank you all for coming to attend this show, and also to thank the panelists very much, who in very precise words gave us so much knowledge. I really enjoyed it, the show, and so much information. And I also want to thank the founder of Aesthetics for the main presentation, which we just watched, which is amazing. Thank you very much for sharing your experience, your vast experience and knowledge with Uganda, and for also giving us so much. I think that the whole ideology or philosophy of sustainability was actually from God from the beginning, because when he created this world, I think most of us believe in the concept of creation. He created it once and intended it to go on and on forever, but he did not expand it, but expected it to accommodate the future, which is running in millions. So a world that was created in one day, in some faith like mine, the Bible, with one man and one woman and one representative of each species, is going on forever, millions of years, which basically is the concept of sustainability. Provide for today, but also look out for the future. And thank you very much for waking us up to this responsibility, which was given to us from the beginning. And also, for those who read the Bible, God said, go and establish dominion over creation, which means enjoy the world, don't exhaust it, live in it, and leave some of it for future generations. That is what we have, a commandment we have from God, to establish dominion over the world. So thank you, Aesthetics, for reminding us of our responsibility towards sustainable living, sustainable management of this world. I was only asked to make a few remarks, and on behalf of those who will not have the opportunity to get this microphone, I really want to thank you for the wonderful show and for the wonderful time that you have given us. To the investors who are here and who are not here, for those of you who will be able to carry the message around, Uganda is a great place to invest. So would like you to invite you to come and invest in this country. The economy is growing in leaps and bounds.